Prospective immigrants, please note, either you will go through the store or you will not go through. If you go through, there is always the risk of remembering your name. Things look at you doubly, and you must look back and let them happen. If you do not go through, it is possible to live worthily, to maintain your attitudes, to hold your position, to die bravely. But much will blind you. Much will evade you. At what cost, who knows? The door itself makes no promises. It is only a door. That poem is by Adrienne Rich. 5 years ago, a small group of people walked through a door. After however many months of gathering to serve and beginning also to worship, and then whatever you did to discern that moment, you crossed a threshold and walked through a door and became an official congregation, the congregation of the Good Samaritan. I wonder, those of you who were there then, what you thought would happen next. Did you think that 5 years later we would be where we are today? I suspect at least the COVID part you did not anticipate. I wonder, those of you who were there then, what it has meant for you personally to have taken that risk. What have you remembered about your own name? What have you remembered about the name of Good Samaritan? How has being a Good Samaritan changed you? I tried to consider for myself in the 5 months I've been here, what it means to me to be a Good Samaritan. As I shared very briefly at the beginning of the service with our chat box question, that I came very close to completely missing the fact of Good Samaritan. It was November. I knew that I was ready to be looking for what God had for me next, but it was busy. It was almost Thanksgiving. Campus ministry had Friendsgiving deliveries happening at the same time as diocesan convention, and I wasn't watching Facebook. But I had a couple of friends who said to me, "Hey, have you been watching that women clergy group on Facebook? Did you see the post, the job that Kristen White just posted?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Yeah, you need to. I think these might be your people. You need to go look at this job description." And I looked at the job description and I picked up the phone and I immediately texted Canon Kristen and said, people are telling me that I need to be looking at this job and I think they might not be wrong. Can we talk? And she said, yes, with the enthusiasm that she so often brings to things. And we talked. And it was interesting. It didn't take long for her to convince me, or for what she said to convince me. She didn't particularly try to sell me, but she just told me how terrific Good Sam's is. And it didn't take long to convince me that I at least needed time to learn more. I needed to have my name in this process to give me a chance to learn more about whether this might be a match for all of us. And I put my application in. I made sure I got it in before Christmas because it was due on Epiphany. And I didn't want to be worrying me or her about it over Christmas. And there's something about the way this then came together that just seems right, not in so much in a happy way as in a like, yeah, of course it did way, where you may remember the January 6th of 2021 did not quite go the way we all had imagined. None of us had quite planned for an insurrection that day. I also had not planned that morning before there was an insurrection to get a message from Canon Kristen saying, were you still gonna be interested in applying for this? We'd love to see your application, which I'm very glad she sent, because it turned out it took us 6 attempts and a totally different pair of email addresses for the application to make it from my email into her inbox. Gmail kept refusing to deliver it. And so in the midst of trying to figure out how to respond to an insurrection, Canon Kristen and I also went back and forth all day saying, did you get it now? No, no. Well, let's try this. Well, let's try this. There's something that feels right about how much it took for that moment to come together, for the possibility to be there, that there was something difficult about it. Because to be a Good Samaritan is, I think, more difficult and a lot riskier than most people imagine. I don't mean specifically to be a member of this congregation. I don't think that's more difficult than most people imagine. Certainly, there are ways that this congregation particularly offers a kind of safety, a safety to grow and learn and make mistakes and be loved into who we really are. And I hope that that kind of safety we never lose about us, that we only grow into that kind of safety that makes it possible to do risky things. But to be a Good Samaritan is to locate ourselves on the Jericho road. And the road from Jericho to Jerusalem is not a safe and predictable place to be. Particularly in Jesus' day, it was not. It's a place, of course, of travel, and travel is to some extent inherently unpredictable and risky. But it's also a place that is known for things like encounters with robbers, or was at that time. It was a place where most people would reasonably do as the priest and the Levite did, to keep their heads down, keep their eyes on the road, don't turn aside for any reason, just make it through, get to where you're going. Anything else might be a trap. To be on the Jericho road is to be in a position of risk in the first place. So I don't think it was an accident that Jesus picked this road for his fictional man to be walking down, where he could encounter robbers and where the Good Samaritan could meet him. To be a Good Samaritan is to be someone who knows the risks of the road, who comes prepared to meet them, but takes that risk anyway. When a Good Samaritan encounters someone lying bloodied by the side of the road, they don't assume a trap. They assume a wound, and they act to meet the need they see. To be a Good Samaritan once is a little bit like having heat stroke once, except much better, of course. But in that once that it's happened, it's more likely to happen again. And the more often that we've been a Good Samaritan, the more often it is likely to happen in the future. Once we've been a Good Samaritan, once we've met a Good Samaritan, we are likely to be changed by the experience. We may begin to remember who we are. We may see things we can never unsee. We may discover that the love we encounter on the Jericho road stays with us as long as we live, and it moves us in ways we did not expect. I wonder whether maybe that's what made the Good Samaritan so good in the first place. I wonder what his previous experience on that road had been. I wonder how he knew to have oil and wine and bandages on his person as he walked along that desert road. I wonder what prepared him to be moved to compassion, or as the Greek roots would have it, to be moved in his bowels. As much as I'm okay with us having culturally relocated the seat of human emotion from the gut to the heart since Jesus' day, the idea that someone's pain might move us in our very bowels does colorfully express the urgency with which true compassion then compels us to action, to get up and go. The story of the Good Samaritan has motivated action for centuries. The story of the Good Samaritan has led to an inn being built on the side of the Jericho Road, the Khan al-Amar, the Good Samaritan Inn, an Ottoman way station for travelers on the road that still stands today. As we look back on the time we have spent together thus far, whether that's been years or months, or maybe just the last 25 minutes, I find myself looking forward to the way station that we have heard a call to build along our own Jericho Road here in Brownsburg. A village hub, a safe place for the whole community, shared with neighbors who share this vision of care and safety for all, even when it might mean some risk to ourselves, and certainly means some effort on our behalf. As I sit here 5 months after walking through this door, 5 years after the congregation walked through the door of becoming, I wonder where we will be 5 years from now. I wonder 5 years from now how we will look back at today's dreams. I wonder what the road will look like and feel like and ask of us to get us there. And I wonder from you, and we can go ahead and put the reflection slide up now. What are some of the doors that you have walked through, the rough roads that you have traveled that have left you changed? They might be positive or wholly negative associations, though in my experience, doors and roads are really a mix of the two. What are some of the doors you have walked through in your life, the rough roads you have traveled that have left you changed? Two for me that stand out are the door of the priesthood, of walking through, and maybe the initial yes to saying, to agreeing to go through the ordination process, even as much as the actual ordination itself, and the process of formation in seminary. And then also the walking through the door of the first time that I said yes to joining activists in the streets, protesting for Black dignity and Black lives. Those are two doors that I walked through that have left me changed in different ways. Rowan says, being a young adult through my parents' divorce. Nancy says, losing my job because of my support for LGBTQ students. Beth says, teaching in Baton Rouge, living on a military base, visiting a juvenile justice facility. Anderson said, relocating to Indy from Lexington, where all of our family surrounded us. Melinda says, losing my dearest friend way too soon. Rob said, 2 divorces and maybe getting fired from the company I founded by the company I sold it to. We've got responses of adoption, witnessing the pain of alcoholism in our family, becoming affirming in my theology, and subsequently realizing I'm queer myself. Those are great answers, and certainly the sorts of things that will change us, leave us changed. I wonder what are some of the ways over the last several years that you have seen Good Samaritan take a risk in order to love our neighbors? How has that made us who we are? Certainly, it said something to me coming in to have our participation in community pride be important enough that even when there was only one day to hold our celebration of new ministry, and it was that same day, that it was a priority that we made sure we were at Pride, that was something we weren't going to give up no matter what. That told me something about who we are as a congregation. And I'm sure that there was some sort of risk involved originally in taking that stand to love our neighbors. We've got, I've been so proud to see Good Sam stand up in our community for the Islamic development and the Brownsburg school board issues. Going to the ICE detention facility in Hutto, Texas with others from General Convention. Nancy says, seems like we were kind of the first to own our support of LGBTQ neighbors out loud. Education and training in racial reconciliation, willing to step forward to help needy, disadvantaged people, recognizing and removing toxic relationships, all the work Good Sam's does for the students at Harris. I wonder, what kind of risks do you think God might ask us to take next in order to love our neighbors? Certainly one that stands out for me is that it will be an exciting risk, but a risk nonetheless, to be all in on the work and the fundraising that it will take to build a village hub, to be a safe and inclusive space for everyone and to make that place happen. Helping the refugees. Yeah. I invite you to consider these questions and this last one in particular as we move forward from here into our affirmation of faith.